All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the beat and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Sebo?
Well, we're going to talk a couple topics. One is I don't know what order codependency you wanted to talk about, and what that is and how it works, and probably how we see it in our political arena. Because we got some politics to talk. Because Tulsi Gabbard came out with her uh, information on the
Hmm.
Obama administration, and there's all the drama around that. Uh, but before that, I wanted to plug a movie, and since you haven't seen it, as we just talked about, and a lot of people might not have, even though it's been around a little bit, I watched Cinderella Man for the first time last night, and that is one of the best movies I've ever watched. It's probably the best movie I've seen since Saving Private Ryan. It's really good. It's engaging. The acting's fantastic, and it covers a lot of topics that I think we're lacking in today's age. I think a lot of people would be better for watching it.
I have heard people speak very highly of it and use it as an example of a positive male role model portrayed well.
Hmm.
I've heard it uh, compared to Warrior, which I have seen.
Hmm.
Of
Warrior was a good movie, but this was fantastic.
that Cinderella Man is kind of like, and it came before Warrior, several years before, and I've heard it described as kind of a more dramatic, more mature version of that. It is a period piece. It takes place in the Great Depression, right?
Yes,
Is
yes.
he's they get hit hard by the Great Depression, and he's an aging boxer.
Yeah, well, he was a contender. So just the gist of the story you get in the first 5 minutes, so it's not really a spoiler. He's a contender for the championship. The Great Depression hits, and at the same time, he goes through a string of injuries. He was in an auto accident, and he has an injury. His hand gets broken a few times, and during one of the fights, his hand gets broken, and he's decommissioned by the boxing commission. And then the story goes from there. But the Great Depression hits, and nobody has. I mean, they're fighting for jobs. They're going to the.
Yeah.
It's like going to the Home Depot to pick up workers for the day. Every day for all of these people trying to just work on the docks,
Yep.
and so his family's in a rough place and he's in a rough place and they're just trying to get by.
Yeah, and he's in New York City, which is one of the areas that was hit especially hard
Hmm.
by the Great Depression, and the unemployment was especially high there. And and that's the point is, this is what a man does to take care of his family. It's also a big deal because it is based on a true story, and important to remember that at that time there were three big sports in America: baseball, horse racing, and boxing.
Hmm.
Those were huge.
And two
Um,
of those were very corrupt. I'm not going to tell you which two.
yeah, yeah. So to be a contender in that, that would be analogous today to being a top 10 or first round draft pick in the NFL or the NBA.
Yeah,
You know,
except the
you're a
pay
big
wasn't as
deal.
good. They kind of
Yeah,
go into that a little bit
yeah.
where these fat cats that are running the thing, talking about corrupt, are in this nice place even during the Great Depression, and he gets $50 for his title winning shot,
Mhm.
and it's $50 back then was a lot of money, but at the same time, it's like a few grand. It's like
Mhm.
the dark days of the UFC. Remember when they would get paid like $1,000 to go out there and win a
Yes.
championship? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I fought in front of I think it was about 5,000 people a couple times in Monterey. Eh, I didn't say good paycheck. I only kept the gloves because I stole them.
And this was early 2000s, right?
No, this is 2000. Those gloves are 2009.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was my second to last fight. So
So that was
2009.
after the Ultimate Fighter, when UFC had finally really taken off and gone
Hmm.
mainstream.
Yeah,
And
but
it
it was
was,
still one of those where you're either making all the money or you're making no money.
mhm,
There's kind
yeah.
of no in between. Yeah.
Um,
But
well,
no, the thing that got me to watch it was Instagram Reels, which we usually rant about, but sometimes you get caught on there. And I do get the masculine dad posts them, and I always get them after 9 p.m. It's like they want me to sit there and cry before I go to bed. But it's a scene from that movie And I was like, what movie is that? And I had to look it up. And Russell Crowe, the main actor, and his daughter is eating a breakfast. It's like a pancake, looks like a pancake. And she asks for more. And he's got one on his plate and he's getting ready to go to work, or try to get a job. He's getting ready to go try to get a job. And she asked for more. And the mother, Renee Zellweger, who does an amazing job in this one, as well as what was she in with Tom Cruise? Show Me the Money, that one.
Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire, yeah. So she does a really great job in this, and she says, "No, no, no, save some for the men who are providing for us, basically." And he walks up and he sits next to the daughter, and he says, "You know, last night I had a dream. I was in this hotel doing this, and I had a big fat steak and a mountain of mashed potatoes, and I'm stuffed." And he gives her the pancake, and then he gets up and goes to work. And I was like, God, that's so good. And I want to see the whole movie. And I was like, oh, Cinderella Man. I've been meaning to watch that since it came out. And it did not disappoint. And you brought up another scene that comes across your reels that I didn't see till I watched the movie.
Yeah, there's a scene where he's having a talk to his son about what it means to be a man, and what men do and don't do. And I've seen it used quite a bit from some of the channels that I follow as an example of how to actually show a male mentor and do it well. And it's just not something you see now as much anymore. You know, it's one of the things I liked about Superman is one of the best scenes is when he's at his low point and he goes back to Smallville, back to the family farm, and his dad comes out to sit on the front porch and talk to him. And so, you know, there's no, you know, epic drama here. It is a very quiet, touching scene of, you know, a an older man telling his now grown son, you know, there's the point of it, and I think the reason it got to me is because my own son is grown now, and you never stop being a father. It's just how you father changes because you are always going to be in that position, and you know, your children, there's always going to be some time where they need parenting.
Mhm.
You know, they need that mentorship, and you need to be there for them. And so that was one of the best scenes in the movie to me, because it was done so well. It reminded me actually of a one of the best. Oof, you talk about tear jerker. So I think I've brought up his name before, Jeff Loeb, who I think is one of the best comic writers ever. Um, even if you're not a big comic nerd, you would probably know some of his work, like The Long Halloween was him. He did some other big storylines, but he also did some big 80s screenplays. He was the screenwriter for Teen Wolf and Commando,
Mhm.
among others, but those are probably the two biggest that people would know. Well, he did a short story of Superman in memoriam to his own son, who was also in the comic industry and died of cancer. And so he wrote this short of Superman reminiscing about a time when he was first getting his powers in high school, and he had this buddy, this friend in high school, and his X-ray vision let him see something was wrong with him, and it turned out the kid had cancer. And this was a moment of, I don't, you know, helplessness on his part. Is I can see this, I know there's something wrong, but I can't do anything about it. And so the last page is him sitting on the front porch, very reminiscent of this scene, and you know, towering over Pa Kent, who's got his arm up around him, saying, you know, that's life, son. And
Mhm.
sometimes you can't do anything, but that doesn't mean you stop trying.
Mhm.
Is the gist of it. And it was, you know, as a memorial to his own son who had died of cancer. Um, and I thought that was just incredible that he could pull that out of himself, and in a way, it was his kind of last parenting to his child who is now gone. Um, and the reason we talk about this stuff and the reason it's so frustrating sometimes is because of what happens when we don't have it. And it has been declining, and the decline, I think, has accelerated recently. That all masculinity is toxic. That's the problem with the term toxic masculinity, is because
Mhm.
for too many people, all masculinity is toxic. Well, what happens when you do that? Well, you have boys who grow up to be young men and they are confused or ignorant or actively don't care what it means to be a man.
Well, and this is what Rob Henderson would call a luxury belief, right? So where does this toxic masculinity come from? It comes from universities. It comes from middle class, female driven industry, APA, psychology, right? Social sciences. The people who drive the conversation on this all have a position of luxury in this case. But if you're the Great Depression, trying to make a living, trying to keep the electricity on, trying to feed your family and everything, that masculinity is pretty well needed at that point. Oh yeah, there are strong women that went out and worked, and especially after the Industrial Revolution. But for the most part, it took that man to sacrifice for his family. And even before that, when you needed to hunt and you needed to do all of these farming, when it was the plow was an amazing thing, but plows are freaking heavy. Okay. You need an ox to pull it and you need a man to get that ox going. All right. So it, I brought this up in the last episode, the irony of the mug that said the best man for the job is a woman when people were giving me the manly tasks that I needed to do for them. And it was, yeah, I asked my son one day and he made me proud. I said, if you're walking with a girl on the side of the street, which side do you walk? And he said, the side closest to the street. And I said, yes. These are the things, the little things. I don't open the door for you because you can't open the door. I open the door for you because you shouldn't have to. That same mentality, and this is we'll get back to the luxury beliefs and the negative side of that, is the same structures in the mind that also say if a big burly guy is coming after you, ma'am, I'm going to be the one in between. I'm going to be the penny. Okay. We're lacking that right now, especially because society is beating it down. And thank goodness he was acquitted, right? Daniel Penny is who I'm talking about there. But on the flip side of that, and this is, I think it was in a conversation with Rob Henderson, but he's brought it up several times. Chris Williamson talks about the slippery slope from not doing the little things that are masculine all the way down to beating your wife.
Mm.
And it's the, okay, well, you don't want to open doors. Okay, you don't want to pay for dinner. Okay, you don't want to do this. Okay, you don't respect her. Okay, boom, and it's that slippery slope all the way down to basically doing the opposite of what a real man would do.
And now you have stories coming out. I don't know if you saw this. It was all over X a week or two ago of I think it was a New York Times story of where have all the men gone? You destroyed them, lady. You and your ilk. And it was a leftist feminist bemoaning the fact that there are no men anymore. Because you said you don't need no man for decades. Not only did you say you don't need no man, but you declared that all traditional male behavior was toxic. And now you're confused and annoyed that there are no men? Really? And and especially in these bubbles, um, I'm not the first one to say this, but
Well, not only that,
the
I'm gonna add one to what you just said. The alternative for men when they're being rejected by women like that is internet outlets for that, which actually give a
Mhm.
message that is the opposite. Look how extreme porn is. It's giving an expectation that is not real life. In fact, I had this discussion with my son the other day because you have to get ahead of these things. And I'm like, I know you've seen this. I know it's something that you're going to come across even more. It's not reality. Here's what's different from the real thing. Don't rush there. But at the same time, don't also think that that's something that is real. And if you come across that in real life, she's probably messed up. Run.
As comedian Matt McClary put it, porn is like professional wrestling. None of the moves work in real life, and everyone who did it in the 80s is dead.
Ugh, oof. Ugh.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Pretty accurate. Um, but what I was gonna say is something that jumped out to me, and I've heard other people say almost immediately when the um open secret that was Harvey Weinstein finally went open, is where were the husbands, the boyfriends, the brothers, the fathers, the where were the men to go, I don't care how rich you are, how powerful you are, I'm gonna break your freaking jaw for what you did to my heck friend,
Hmm.
right? Someone like that is able to do what he did because there is no masculinity around him to put him in check.
Hmm.
And so you get these excesses. And then you declare, you the straw feminist that I'm holding up here, who's not actually made of straw because she writes for the New York Times, then go, where'd they all go? Well, because every time there was a Harvey Weinstein, you declared that that's all men.
Hmm.
And I'm wearing my nerdrotic t-shirt because I am a political nerd. And so I'm going to bring up lots of history today. And one of them is something that um, Rush Limbaugh talked about, and he had the receipts. He was quoting from third wave feminists, and people didn't believe him even when he was in his own books. He cited and footnoted where it came from, that there was a movement that started in the 70s or early 80s of third wave feminism that declared all sex is rape because there is an inherent power differential. Amusingly, there was this big scandal at Aberdeen, Maryland, where there's a major training base for the Army, and it included the sergeant major of the Army, who is the highest ranking enlisted person in the Army. And there was this scandal of sexual harassment, even up to sexual assault, and a lot of it was breaking of the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and the same third wave feminism used this to show, see, no, this is not sexual harassment, this is rape, because the power dynamic between a trainee private and the sergeant major of the Army is so vast that trainee could not possibly say no.
Hmm.
These same people conveniently forget that a couple years ago when the leader of the free world was getting a Hummer from an intern. And the reason I bring this up is because, let's see, where do I want to start? So, one of the things that prompted this is in order to
Well,
get,
this is crazy too, because we do have to figure out where that line is. Because let's be honest, young women are attracted to older men a lot. And the reasons they're attracted to older men is a power dynamic. What are you supposed to do as the older man? Because you've had the time to become successful. That's the main reason. And successful means power in some way, shape, or form, right? Whether that's money or a good career or a stable home, all of these influence. If someone's attracted to you for the reason you have that dynamic over them, what is your best course of action? To ignore that person and go find someone of equal power? Well, guess what? We don't live in a perfect world. You, to find an equal, you will never find a complementary person. You will end up in a relationship of two people with the same thing to bring to the table, and that's it's not how this works. So that's why I hate the power dynamic structure.
right. And this comes up in, all right, so the slide I have here is from a campus safety course I had to take before I could get
Mm.
registered for the courses I'm taking this fall, going back to school. And I was kind of ranting the whole time I was doing it. Uh, and I, I failed just, uh, I failed my first task going back to school, which was just keep my head down, take the stupid test, get enrolled in classes, because I kept arguing with the slides. So, for instance, this one. Yes. All right. So this is now. I'm gonna preface this with this particular one is as it says. This is the college's definition of consent from the student handbook. But prior to this, they had cited relevant Texas state penal code. So yes, this is their definition, but it is based on Texas penal code. So this is not just regulation, but also legality, which is disconcerting because, so as it says here, consent is giving explicit permission. All right, we've talked about that before. That's problematic because where does that leave room for romance?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this was a joke years ago when this first started that California colleges were requiring, as part of their student conduct, that in a sexual interaction, you had to get affirmative, verbal, explicit permission for every step. I'm going to kiss you now. Is that okay? I'm going to take your shirt off now. Is that okay? I'm going to. Way to build the passion, people.
Mm-hmm.
Only
You get
possible
to, I'm going
when
to
there is
go down on you now. Oh, you missed it. Oh, most guys.
oh, only possible when there is equal power. Oh, wait a minute. How easy is this to then go back on after the fact to post hoc say, well, I couldn't give consent because there's an equal power.
Well, and this is
Literally,
very problematic for us guys because
yeah,
9 times out of 10, we're bigger and stronger.
I am literally twice the size of my wife.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just pure size. And then you factor in the difference in bone and muscle density. And yeah, there is no equal power there physically whatsoever. So kind of feels like one group is being targeted over the other.
Yeah, we need to go date in the powerlifting club.
Apparently so.
Yep.
Um, based on choice, active, not passive. Women tend to be much more passive in general. Determined without pressure or coercion from others. Consent is not giving in because of fear. Okay, well, I don't think anyone's going to argue with that one. Based on manipulation, deception, or lying.
Also, this one's problematic. I know I agree with the premise of it, but this is the big giant but. Sorry, ladies. You ignore the red flags of the 6'3", could be on The Bachelor, looks good, has money, and has no intention of being there when you wake up in the morning, but you've convinced yourself they're going to be your boyfriend. You lied to yourself. Sorry.
Mhm.
So, but no, if they're actively manipulating or deceiving you, that's bad. But if you're deceiving yourself, that's another story, but it still would fall under this category because you would say, I thought we had something. Well, you thought, but nobody said anything. Nobody did anything to make you think. Sorry, that's my rant on that one.
Yep. Um, consent is not possible when one person has more power than the other.
Refer back to our comments on the first one.
Mm-hmm. Considering now, again, this is for campus interactions, which one that that feels targeted at the classic professor student relationship, which is already a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but any uh, workplace relationship or interaction, it's going to be very difficult to find someone exactly on your level. And
Well,
since you
go
spend
go to
so
the
much
campus
time at
again.
work,
Go to the campus again. What if you're the tutor?
yeah,
You have no influence over their grade other than you're helping them, but you spend a lot of time together.
yep, spend a lot of time together, stuff's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What's who else are you going to ask out except the people you're around a lot?
Well, we talked about, remember when we talked about Sabatini and his lab getting blacklisted from all labs, the guy who was basically curing cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever spent time in a lab, people? You spend you're basically there. You know them like family at that point. And there's two kinds of family, the kind of family you marry into or the kind of family you grew up with. And this is the one you came together as adults. So,
Mm-hmm. Last one I want to point out because it has been a long running problem that student advocacy groups and uh, pro bono legal groups have had to fight for years now. I was hearing about this kind of stuff 15 plus years ago that consent is not possible if one person is under the influence of alcohol or drugs. I'm sorry, this is a college handbook. All of them are frequently going to be under the influence of alcohol or drugs. That's what they do on their weekends. And that's where you meet up with other students or people who you might be interested in. Okay. That is the mating dance of people in general is let's go to the club, let's go to the bar, let's go to the house party. And inevitably, if both of you are under the influence, it was somehow always the male that was charged with a crime or a violation of the university policy.
mm-hmm.
Now, ask your question again, Miss Feminist writer of the New York Times. Golly gee, where did all the men go? I don't know. It's a mystery. It truly is a mystery. Um, the other thing that popped into my head about this is that this hurts women too. I mean, we're not just here in the red pill movement. Is that what it was of the men's rights movement or whatever? Of we're not just here, oh, poor men. When you destroy masculinity, you harm women too,
Mm-hmm.
because you're not going to get into a good relationship if you cannot find a man who acts like a
Well,
man.
the title of that article explicitly says it. Where did all the good men go? Because she's desperate for it.
Hmm,
She wouldn't write an article for the New York Times if she didn't need that.
that's true. But also, um, so I've mentioned this before. This is something Jason Whitlock, who's primarily a sports guy, that's where he came out of, but he does a lot of social commentary lately because of the annoying crossover into sports. And his point, the point he's been making for a long time is why do we in the Black community celebrate the fact that we are a matriarchy, that we are raised by our grandmas and aunties? And look what that does. That creates young, strong, passionate men who don't know how to constrain that passion because women don't, because they don't have to. And well, when a man doesn't, it leads to serious violence.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the destruction of masculinity has led to a ballooning of relationships that we call toxic.
Yeah, it's deep though. It's real. Okay, so let's actually define non-toxic masculinity, and it's actually going to be the inverse of what we're being taught nowadays of what is toxic masculinity. Real masculinity is actually a control over the emotion, because toxic masculinity would be acting out in anger, acting out uh, abusively, acting out in jealousy, acting out in all of these emotional states, where the stoic is actually has those things in check, even though they acknowledge them. They say, okay, I am angry, but that is the improper response for this moment. And so we've inverted that. And so now it's, let's be in touch with your emotions. Let's express our emotions. Well, guess what happens when men express their emotions? Aggression. It is directly tied to men's emotion is aggression. If you're angry, if you're sad, if you're fearful, you lash out. And that's what we're teaching young boys now.
Mhm.
Get in touch with your emotion. No, acknowledge your emotion, but also control it. And that's being called toxic because, oh, they don't wear their heart on their sleeve. Well, as Dax says, if you a man who wears his heart on his sleeve, you can't complain when it rips every once in a while. I think is the line. Is something close to that. It's a line of the song. But
Yeah.
yeah,
It back to what we were ranting about a few minutes ago. You don't want someone who is twice your size wearing his emotions on his sleeve. That's not a good thing for you. Um, to that point, the other slide I took a picture of, uh, this one is very interesting to me because so the reason I'm going into law is because I hate it. Because and this has been a long running problem. This goes back to a rant that Dennis Miller had back in the 90s, where he said, we don't have a justice system, we have a legal system.
so the
Uh,
the the lyrics to the song were, can't have a man who wears his heart on his sleeve that won't rip once in a while at the seams.
mhm.
Yeah. Song is Real Man by Dax.
So um, when that happens to the extreme, that's where you get violent outbursts. And um, so along with the consent, there was a big section on relationship violence, as it was called. And the
Mhm.
reason this part annoyed me is because, again, the slide here was prefaced with Texas Penal Code. And my rant was, why do we need extra protection, the Protection of Women Act and Violence Against Women Act and domestic, but assault is assault. It shouldn't matter. We already have these things covered, and yet we created this whole new system with some very messy language. Okay, because what I kind of laughed at, because I have a dark sense of humor here, is that so what this slide says to me is, well, what it says directly, quote, relationship violence is a pattern of behavior in an intimate relationship that is used to establish power and control over another person through fear and intimidation. Whether you refer to an experience as dating violence, domestic violence, intimate partner violence, or relationship violence, all terms mean that one partner has gained more power over time through the use of controlling tactics.
You mean like the mama ain't happy, nobody happy tactic?
Huh.
Does
Funny how
that
that
count?
works. No, that doesn't count because that's mom, and she's immune to this. But so what this is saying is that toxic relationships aren't toxic, they're illegal.
Hmm.
How else do you interpret that? What does the pattern of violence look like? Your significant other uses dominance, humiliation, isolation. Okay, stop there. Again, that is a toxic relationship, a very toxic relationship, and you need to get out. But is that an illegal relationship, or is that
Does that
one
count
adult?
every time your girlfriend is hangry?
Good question.
Yeah. How many
I,
times do you get like yelled at and they're like, I'm just hangry.
the language of this is
Yeah.
skewed towards men. The enforcement of it is definitely historically has been skewed towards young men.
Well,
And
because by definition, the power dynamic is always in our favor because we're a bit
yep,
more physically imposing.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. And now the second half of this,
Wait. Your partner threatens your reputation because you won't have sex.
hold on, don't get ahead of me.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah, sorry.
the second half of this, threats, intimidation, physical violence to control you. Well, we already have laws about that.
Hmm.
That is you can like the lowest degree of assault, because they showed this in the freaking Texas Penal Code before this, is the lowest degree of assault is threatening someone with imminent violence, and if it's a credible threat, that is the lowest level of assault. I don't actually have to hit you. If I threaten you enough with strong enough language and it is a credible enough threat, that is assault. It's a very low level. You're probably not going to go to jail for that, but that's assault. Okay, so again, why do we need it here? And in a way that that muddies the waters and biases against one
Well,
group over the other.
this is by definition concept creep, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you and I can both agree physical violence, intimidation, and threats are all reasons why someone in a partnership, whether it's male or female, but typically the male because they're more violent, uh, should be held accountable, whether that's legally or just through ostracization, the hardest word in the English language, ostracization, right? But then they creep it. Then they
Mm-hmm.
creep it to reasons why you should just break up with your partner. If they're humiliating you, yeah, it's break up with that person. They're toxic, but it's not illegal. We can make fun of each other. We have you seen me and Heath in private giving each other a shit, hard time? Have you been a brother or sister, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it is a reason to get out of your relationship. If they're over domineering, if they're trying to dominate you, if they're always like blowing up your phone every time you're away from them, all of these things, or they isolate you to make you feel bad about anything you did, yeah, those are all bad and that you should break up with that person. But they're not illegal.
Mm-hmm.
They're just shitty behavior.
And again, the whole thesis of this, the whole point of this, the whole reason we started with the movie Cinderella Man is I contend this shitty behavior is on the rise because for way too many years now, not only have we not been teaching boys how to be good young men, we have been actively discouraging the traits that would make them good young men.
Well, let's go to isolation. In a true relationship, you're not always going to have good times.
Hmm.
And if your partner is being shitty to you, it might be proper to ignore them for a second, to let them know they're being shitty to you. Dominance. If my partner is making a very bad decision for the relationship, it might be a time to put the foot down. And vice versa. If I'm making bad decisions, that partner should put their foot down with me if we have a healthy relationship. So we're taking something that actually could be good and calling it abuse. Now, it does have a dark side. If you're, like I said, blowing up your phone every time you're gone, uh, pinging that's why I hate iPhones. Everybody knows where each other are at any given time. They're
Hmm.
like, I saw you at this gas station. Why were you there? That kind of thing. It's like, oh, you said you were at Sarah's house, but you were at Tiffany's house. Okay, well, plans change, and Sarah was at Tiffany's house. That's why I went there. But you get that kind of stalking type behavior in
Hmm.
relationships. That's bad. But oh, I'm compulsively gambling with our money. Hey, stop gambling. That's
Yeah.
healthy. That's healthy dominance. Hey, that is our money. you are not spending our money that way.
Mhm.
That's healthy dominance.
So to the one you jumped ahead to, I'm going to combine these two of point number 2 and 4 here. Your partner threatens your reputation because you won't have sex. Your partner says they will leave you if you don't have sex with them. Hold on a second. That is clearly targeted at one side more than the other. Are you saying that women don't use sex as a weapon? They just do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Do this thing for me if you want to have fun tonight. Do this, or I'm going home alone. Do this, or I'm going to go spend the night at my friend's house. That is a type of control manipulation, you know, tit for tat blackmail, if you will. It's crappy behavior. But again, is that illegal behavior, or should it be illegal behavior? Or is that just two adults in a crappy relationship that need to grow the F up?
Yeah. That, and realistically, let's be honest, with a romantic relationship, I use the word on purpose. Why is it wrong to leave a partner that is not having sex with you? That's what separates you from friends. That's what separates your relationship from the relationship that guy has with their sister. It is the romantic part of romantic relationship. And if you cut that off, why are you judging the guy because he's not done with that part of the romantic relationship? It does. I mean, it's one of my biggest pet peeves with our marriage and romantic relationship topics in general is, why is that as taboo as any other reason you leave your partner? Why is that more taboo than the 80% of divorces now, which is the woman leaving because she's just not happy anymore? Why
Well,
do
what makes a man not happy in a relationship anymore?
exactly?
Yeah. So you touched on something with the clingy, stalkerish type of behavior that I have. The more I hear about, especially youngsters in bad relationships, the more I go, oh, this is I don't know how much of this is bias. Like you start looking for a new car and suddenly start seeing that car everywhere. But since I
My truck. I got a
said,
truck. I'd never seen that color on a truck, and it's everywhere.
but you had used a term before that I hadn't heard. And now I'm suddenly kind of seeing it everywhere. And I suspect it is part of this, what I'm kind of ranting about here, which is this um, emotional immaturity of so many youngsters because we have not taught our boys how to be good young men, and also there is a lack of masculinity, but then also that means girls have not grown up into young women who know what that is and how to deal with that and how to form a complementary bonding. And instead what you have is codependency.
Mm-hmm.
I believe you have the technical definition of what that means.
Yeah, I won't. I'll just read it instead of bringing it up. But it's APA, American Psychological Association, defines codependency as a dysfunctional relationship pattern in which an individual is psychologically dependent on, in quotations or in parentheses, or controlled by a person who has a pathological addiction, example, alcohol, gambling. It also can describe a broader pattern of unhealthy reliance on another person for emotional fulfillment and self-worth. Essentially, codependency involves an excessive reliance on another person, often to the detriment of one's own well-being. Now, they brought up addiction, which is usually is a standard codependency relationship, but also narcissism. Narcissists they target the codependent because they know that person will always fill their void for external validation because the codependent is so afraid to lose that person that they will do whatever they and they will deal with all the bullshit that goes with it. So the typical narcissist codependent relationship has the narcissist coming in and doing what's called love bombing. They come in the door and they love bomb the person they know needs it. Just like bullies pick their target, narcissists pick their target. And the love bombing causes that codependent to be everything the narcissist needs. But then the narcissist is a narcissist. They don't care. They just care about what they're getting. So when the love bombing ends, they basically just like a vampire suck the energy out of the codependent. And then when the codependent starts pulling away a little bit, they love bomb again. And that codependent's so needing of this validation that they fall right back in. So that's the typical thing. And I think Dr. Drew Prinsky said this the other day on Michael Malice's show. He said, addiction, the reason why that has the same result is because every addict is in their addiction becomes narcissistic. Because everything is about fulfilling that addiction.
That is a good analysis of that kind of behavior. And it's there was a word in there that connects to what we were talking about last time with fictional characters and fictional relationships. But again, the reason they're important, like Cinderella Man, the reason it's important is because it gives you a good example of what to do or not to do. And we compared a couple of an older man who had self-worth because he had accomplished a lot in his life. And you have this younger man he's trying to mentor, trying to figure out, and he has self-esteem because he has been esteemed from the outside by others. And so he doesn't know who he is. He's not comfortable in his own skin. And you combine that, spending decades pushing self-esteem instead of self-worth, with what you have been harping on this whole time, which is power dynamics. And now all of a sudden, you can't have a healthy relationship because you have no internal self-worth and you're too busy looking at the power structure and the how do I win here versus how do we coexist and make each other better.
And it's one of those so nuanced things in life because life is just a big pile of mud we're trying to trudge through. Everything is kind of a power dynamic. It's how you treat it is the problem. And my problem with modern dating is everybody's treating it like a power dynamic. But if I go into a situation, say I take a lovely female out to dinner and I buy dinner, I have just had the plus end of a power dynamic, right? But did I do it to have power over her? Or did I do it because that was just the right thing to do? And so, yeah, they do play into that. And in a physical manifestation of the daily chores, I have the power dynamic. In, you know, a nurturing situation like the first 6 months of a child's life, guess who's got all the power? Mom, right? So these things flux and flow. And how do you treat it? Do you say, I'm grabbing this and I'm taking hold of it? Or are you just letting it flow and letting the relationship nurture through the differences between you two? And that's, I mean, even in the bedroom, sometimes you're dominant, sometimes you're letting it happen. And if you do both, you're probably in the best part of the relationship. You know, sometimes she wants you to take control. God damn it. Be men,
No,
guys.
that's illegal. That's against the penal code. I incite for you the relevant passages if you need. Oy vey.
And don't ever delete a text because if she asks you to, then you got it in writing.
um, so uh
I'm serious. That is legit advice. No disclaimers needed, young men.
uh um this connects to why I think we are also so dysfunctional in our political discourse because you see a lot of the same pitfalls, a lot of the same um psychological and intellectual fallacies and problems in our political not just discourse, but what leads to the discourse, which is our own evaluation of the facts, is we have um everything is a power dynamic. We are we have also, too many of us, entered into a codependent relationship with our side, whether that be a political party or a movement or a cult of personality, a particular person, whether it be Trump or someone else. Uh, this is where nobody liked me in 2015, 2016, because I kept pointing out all the problems I had with Trump. And then all of my lefty friends, yeah, yeah, yeah. Obama is the same way. You were not allowed to criticize him or you were racist for 8 years. 8 years. I had forgotten this incident, but some people have been posting, you know, uh, necromancing this old story because of all the people freaking out over Colbert being fired. And it's this, you can't make fun of the president, so we don't live in a free country. There was a rodeo clown at the Missouri State Fair back in like 2012-ish. All he did was wear a mask of Obama. Whether he was making a point or whether it was just for giggles, don't know. But that person was hounded and fired, and it was declared by the state fair they would never work at the state fair or any of its affiliated rodeos ever again. Because he wore a mask.
Yeah, but that's blackface.
I guess that's why everyone was all bent out of shape.
No, no, yeah,
It's,
I think it's more the political angle. Yeah.
I guess these people never watched Point Break. I don't know. But
Or Tropic Thunder.
I love that movie. That was, I think that was one of the last cult classics because there was so much controversy around it and it didn't do great at the box office. And then people started watching it on cable and DVD and were like, this is freaking hilarious. And, it's a modern day Blazing Saddles. It's not as good as Blazing Saddles because, that's freaking practically perfect. But
Oh,
anyway,
Mel Brooks could not exist these days.
I know. Um, it anyway, so the specifically, I want to talk about what DNI Tulsi Gabbard released last week. And one of the reasons I'm wearing my nerd shirt, because I'm a political nerd, and I want to remind you that almost nothing she released is new. It is, however, confirmation of what a lot of people have been saying for quite some time now. Okay. 9 years now, because people started saying this in 2016 when, in the immediate aftermath of the election, this Russia hacked the election stuff first started. And there were a lot of people saying, something's fishy here. This doesn't smell right. Something's up. And what she did is release internal communications, memos, and emails that confirm what a lot of people have been saying for a long time. I'll refer you back to however many years ago it was when I pulled up the Inspector General report on the Trump Russia investigation. And there were two big points in that Inspector General report to me that showed these people knew this was a nothing burger very early on. And that was, one, there was this connection between a computer in Trump's organization and this Russian oligarch. And from the very beginning, the tech guy said, yeah, that's just spam email that this guy stayed at a Trump hotel. And so Trump Hotels Inc. is sending him marketing emails. There's no there there. That's all that is. They knew that very early on. Mm-hmm. The other one, because it is was very personal to a real human being who was damaged for this, was, I believe it was Papadopoulos, was targeted because he was having conversations with Russian officials and businessmen. And from the beginning, when the FBI started looking into this, the CIA said, yeah, we know. He's one of ours. He debriefs us every time he has one of these meetings. They conveniently left that part out of their FISA warrants and of their investigation when they targeted this guy, and which is how he was able to successfully sue because of this. Well, what Tulsi Gabbard showed is that they knew even before. So if you want a good quick explainer of what this is and why it's a big effing deal, I would suggest you go to Megyn Kelly's X feed and find the clip she posted with Matt Taibbi from a few days ago on her podcast. And Taibbi, who has been reporting on this for a long time and is no right winger.
Oh, yeah, it depends on who you ask these days.
Exactly. Depends on who you ask these days. He is the meme of the guy sprinting to the left and saying, "When did you become so radical?" But I
mean, he wrote for Jacobin, for God's sakes.
Exactly. Yeah. So he pointed out that what these emails and memos show is that not only there was a complete 180, and it was purposeful to it wasn't just a purposeful focus and establishing a narrative of Russia hacked the election, but also, as he pointed out, it wasn't just that. It was they were claiming the intelligence community, the media, the administration was claiming that not only did Trump hack the election in favor, or Russia hack the election in favor of Trump, that the Trump administration colluded with. That was the point of going after Papadopoulos, as he was supposedly the point man coordinating and colluding with the Russians. Not only did they establish that narrative, but what Gabbard released are communications which show they had the exact opposite opinion up until this, I believe it was December 9th meeting, where suddenly everything shifted. Because she released, in fact, I am going to, all right, so if you did, here we go. Here is the thread that was posted on the 18th. And this is DNI Gabbard's, so her official X account. Okay.
Well, it's her official X account for her position. She has an official personal account. Yeah.
So she goes through with a number of slides with clips showing excerpts of these this correspondence, and how, as she puts it here in her first comment to her own post, for months preceding the 2016 election, the intelligence community shared a consensus view. Russia lacked the intent and capability to hack US elections. But weeks after President Trump's historic 2016 victory defeating Hillary Clinton, everything changed. And she shows an August 31st DHS official to then DNI Clapper from, so August 31st, we are working with CIA on a presidential daily briefing, PDB submission on the threat. The thrust of the analysis is that there is no indication that of a Russian threat to directly manipulate the actual vote count through cyber means. And then the next one is September 9th. We agree with Russia probably is not and will not trying to influence the election by using cyber means to manipulate computer-enabled election infrastructure. December 7th, DNI talking points. We assess that foreign adversaries did not cyber blah, blah. And then she goes on to show that, and then all of a sudden, this flipped. And it appears to be directly because of Clapper and Comey primarily, probably also Brennan, but seems to have been at the behest of Obama himself. And you can go to the actual memorandum that was released, which is 11 pages, if you want the details specifically, and you want to see the documentation. There is some redaction here. But it's pretty clear there's a lot unredacted. So it shows, as Taibbi put it, that there was a consensus that, yeah, the Russia is going to do, as he put it with Megyn Kelly, Russia is going to do what they always did, which is try and sow chaos, which is, muddy the waters, try and mess things up, be an annoyance, I think was the term Taibbi used. There was no indication from any intelligence assessment prior to December 8th or 9th that they had actively interfered in the election, that they had done anything that could or would actually change the outcome of the election. And then all of
Yeah,
a sudden, December 8th or 9th, whoop,
but this
180.
is this is Matt Taibbi we're talking about, who actually lived in Russia and he played professional basketball in Mongolia. So he's obviously an asset,
Clearly an asset.
clearly.
Oh, but then there was this today that I found scrolling around this morning while I was drinking my coffee. So Jason Buttrell is a former intelligence officer and is now the head researcher for Glenn Beck at the Blaze. And he has put together a lot of stuff that has been later confirmed by other sources. And he is going through this document dump from Gabbard, and he found something interesting, which is quoting from his post here, and he has a screenshot of the relevant documentation that he's looking at. The Russians apparently had compromising intel on Hillary Clinton, far worse than what they lied about on President Trump. And Democrats, along with CIA, held this back. So this is what he's looking at is documents that Gabbard released, which means they are American intelligence assessments. So the American intelligence community knew what Russian intelligence had on Hillary Clinton. Okay. So again, they knew that this narrative that was being pushed was 180 degrees away from reality, because if they really wanted, so this is another thing Taibbi points out, is that what the Russian sources internally were saying is that what really a lot of American people were saying as well, which is including the 2016, the people who weren't crazy, but the principled never Trump conservatives were, we don't know who this guy is, but there are a lot of things in his personality, in his past, which make us think that he is not going to be a good president. Hillary Clinton is awful, but she's a known awful. And so there were people that thought, I would rather vote for Hillary than for Trump because at least I know what I'm getting. Well, Taibbi pointed out in that Megyn Kelly segment that that's what the Russians thought too, is this Trump guy, because he has been a private citizen his whole life, and because he has these public pronouncements that are just all over the place, we don't know what his policy is actually going to be. We'd rather have Hillary because we don't like her, but we know who she is. We can work with or around her, is basically what they were thinking. And this is confirmed here with what Jason Buttrell is posting. This is confirmed by the fact that they had seriously damaging intelligence on the Hillary Clinton and her campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't release it. This was nowhere in the media in the lead up to the election. And this includes things like, going back to Buttrell's post here, Obama and Dem leaders found the state of Hillary Clinton's health, quote, extraordinarily alarming. HRC was suffering from, quote, intensified psycho-emotional problems, including uncontrolled, in quote, emotions. She was placed on a daily regimen of, quote, heavy tranquilizers and was obsessed with a thirst for power. HRC was allegedly suffering from type 2 diabetes, heart disease, deep vein thrombosis, blood clots, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Clinton campaign email described an HRC approved plan to try and link Trump to Russian hackers to distract the American public from Clinton's email server scandal. Russians had details of secret meetings with multiple religious organizations in which the US State Department offered, in exchange for supporting Hillary Clinton, significant increases in financing from department funds and the patronage of state in dealings.
See, my first thought here is their intelligence. I question their intelligence because that list, that litany of health problems, I mean, we're 10 years later now, and she would not be doing as well as she's doing now if all of those things were going on. So I would question the validity of everything, but if we can bring the receipts of those behind the scenes dealings, or even that she was seeing cardiologists at the time and stuff like that, then yeah, that's pretty crazy. But I just question the intelligence in general. I am more interested in what Tulsi has put forward as far as her evidence that the other stuff was all fake. Because I mean, that's sedition at minimum, and if it was outside of the presidency, it's treason.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, I don't speak legalese, but I pretend to. And, the word treason has been thrown around. DNI Gabbard herself used that term. And I was like, was it though? Because
Well, treason, the difference between sedition and treason is the involving of a foreign.
exactly.
Yeah.
So let me back up a second here. What I have pulled up for those of you just listening is it's from Cornell Law School. That they have this up on their website, but it's the US code. You can search through it. And the core definition of treason is whoever owing allegiance to the United States levies war against them or adheres to their enemies, giving them aid and comfort within the United States or elsewhere, is guilty of treason. And then, lesser parts of the code are if you know that this is happening and do not report it, that is a crime. Rebellion or insurrection against the authority, it defines what that is. None of those definitions legally seem to apply to what we suspected happened and what Gabbard is confirming through internal communications happened. But you get to US Code 2384, seditious conspiracy. If two or more persons in any state or territory or in any place subject to the jurisdiction of the United States conspire to overthrow, put down, or to destroy by force the government of the United States, or to levy war against them, or to oppose by force the authority thereof, or by force to prevent, hinder, or delay the execution of any law of the United States, or by force to seize, take, or possess any property of the United States contrary to the authority thereof, they shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 20 years or both. Now, the problem, if you will, in the statute is the focus on force.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that it would apply.
Well, that's what we just discussed with relationships, power dynamics. What is force? Is withholding sex force? Is using physical violence force? I would say yes to both.
Well,
force takes many forms.
And then the next section, 2385, advocating overthrow of the government. Is that not what they were doing? Based on what, again, back to Taibbi and his point on the Megyn Kelly show, the big smoking gun bombshell of these documents is, yes, this was what a lot of people, Mark Levin, Dan Bongino, Taibbi himself has did a lot of reporting on the Trump Russia scandal. And what a lot of people have suspected for a long time is that not only is there no there, but they knew it. That was the key. Is the allegation was the people like Brennan, Clapper, Comey, who were in charge and helping push this and helping execute these investigations, the allegation was they knew this was all made up BS. Well, to Taibbi's point, what Gabbard release shows that, yeah, that's true. They knew from the beginning because they had all of these assessments from August through to the beginning of December that said there's no there. And then all of a sudden, everything became a focused on, I kind of skimmed through, but some of the more interesting documents that were released were communications from the actual analysts saying, I I can't write a report that says that because I have no evidence to show that. And they were told, write it anyway. So 18 U.S. Code 2385, advocating overthrow of government. Donald Trump, whether you like him or not, was the duly elected. And again, we know this from these documents. They knew he was the duly elected. It was not Russian hacked the election. The duly elected, duly sworn in president of the United States, and using information that they knew was heavily skewed or flat out made up, they sought to undermine and I would say overthrow that administration. Whoever knowingly or willfully advocates, abets, advises, or teaches the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying the government of the government of the United States, or the government of any state, territory, district, or possession thereof, or the government of any political subdivision therein, by force or violence, or by the assassination of any officer of any government, or whoever with intent to cause the overthrow or destruction of any government, such government, prints, publishes, edits, issues, circulates, sells, distributes, or publicly displays any written or printed material advocating, advising, or teaching the duty, necessity, desirability, or propriety of overthrowing or destroying any government. Also kind of sounds to me like CNN could be in legal trouble, or should be at any rate.
Who?
CNN.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is the difference here that I think probably is the main point is it's that so many politicians hide behind plausible deniability. They'll hear something, take it and run with it, and they just go with it. What we have here is knowing the truth and still going with it. There's a difference. It's the gossip. Do you know Jane was cheating on Joe with the pool guy yesterday? Okay, so you take that, and you spread that rumor, or you're hearing that and Jane was with you that day, so it couldn't have happened, but you still spread the rumor. So now you're maliciously attacking Jane versus just getting information and going with it.
And where the connection to intellectual and psychological immaturity and codependency comes from is the virulent anti-Trump crowd since the 18th, when DNI Gabbard released these documents. She released documents. She's not just saying this, she's saying this is what they said. And yet the headlines are Tulsi Gabbard attempts to rewrite history. Tulsi Gabbard proves she's a Russian agent.
Or Trump makes statements with no evidence. I've seen that one. Yeah.
I showed you the documents. You can go and look at the DIG Russia hoax memo. Just look for that, find the PDF, and boom, there you go. You can look at the memorandum for Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, subject intelligence community suppression of intelligence showing Russia and criminal actors did not impact the 2016 presidential election via cyber attacks or infrastructure. Unclassified. Yoink. A dozen pages of excerpts from official communications. You can say that is a misinterpretation of the data because you can say, well, that doesn't change the facts because, but to just declare that it is rewriting history well, I mean, in a sense, she is rewriting history, but that's because the history was wrong of the narrative of the corporate media. to say she's proving she's a Russian agent, you people are insane.
Hmm. Well, and
Literally insane.
remember who started the she's a Russian agent to begin with? Good old Hillary Clinton on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
I am not now, do I intend to be feeling suicidal anytime soon. I'd just like to put that out.
Uh,
Yeah. Gee, I wonder why that is. Well, that leads me to the kind of the last point I wanted to talk about with this, which is I've seen several people, prominent accounts on X, float this idea. I was curious what you thought. It is because last time we talked politics, we talked about the Epstein files and the kerfuffle with their release. And this was last Wednesday, so the 16th, that we talked about this. Gabbard made this big release on the 18th, Friday. Well, our point was the Epstein files aren't going away. That this controversy isn't going away, nor should it. And the way it's being handled is mind-bogglingly dumb. But the theory is yes, because you don't have a big release like what happened on Friday without quite a few people knowing about it, including the president himself.
mm-hmm.
So the theory is that one, on the one hand, the reason Trump and his people now I think this is fundamentally the way they did it is fundamentally flawed because it just Streisand affected it and made it even worse. It is not saying, "Hey, calm down. We're looking into it. These things take time, and it's way more complicated than we realized when during the election we said, hey, we're just going to release all this stuff day one. Oh, well, we got in here, we got to looking at it, and it's messy, it's complicated. Give us some time. The way they just said this is a nothing burger, you people are dumb. Why do you people care about this? That just fanned the flames. But the
Mm-hmm.
theory is they were trying to squash this because they knew what was coming with these intelligence community communications. They knew what was coming and they didn't want to distract it. And then on the other hand, the reason there was all of this Epstein rage bait and whispers and rumors and anonymous sources from within the law enforcement intelligence community kind of fanning the flames of Epstein. And now, even all of a sudden, you start seeing major corporate accounts like, oh, wow, all of a sudden, Jake Tapper cares about the Epstein case. Where were you the last 8 years, you hypocritical douche? Because they knew what was coming with the Russia collusion hoax, the smoking guns showing it was in fact a hoax. That language from the right was not hyperbole, and they wanted to get in front of it with a distraction.
Mm-hmm.
To your point about this is why Hillary Clinton and her team way back during the that was the Democratic primary, wasn't it? Where they called her a Russia agent.
It was, yeah, it was shortly after that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it was after she blew up Harris.
so
Oh no, no, yeah, it was after that, but she got in a hot water when she criticized Obama
oh,
for
that's
his
right.
bombing of the I think it was Syria at the time.
Um so they were trying to get out in front of someone they knew would be not just intellectually opposed to them, but would also be effective.
Hmm.
I think Gabbard is proving she is very effective at what she's doing.
Well, we see this from the woke struggle sessions. The worst thing isn't to be the opposition. The worst thing is to be the person on that side that
Mm.
says something contrary to the message. And I've got so many that could be the meme for this one. Here's one that I'm thinking.
Jeez.
For those just watching, it's got Biden talking to Hillary over the phone. It says suicide hotline. How can I help you? And he's like, I'd like to place an order. There's also this one. CDC announced people with dirt on the Clintons have an 873% higher chance of suicide.
Funny how that works.
And then we've got this one. It's a picture of Epstein, and it says, "I asked Hillary to be my Valentine. She left me hanging."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's a lot of there to this theory that is what created the feeding frenzy around the Epstein files, is
Hmm.
that it was, on the one hand, people trying to get in front of what they knew was going to be released, because the you don't just put documentation like this together that week. This is something they've been working on for a while, probably since she first took her position as director of national intelligence.
Hmm.
She's probably been working on this entire year.
Well, and that was the big reason why she was kind of opposed in that position is because not only is she in a position, these were the people that were spying on her, right?
Mhm.
So that was the big deal. But also, she's kind of had beef with Hillary for quite some time. And whether that adds strength to the argument or takes it away, I don't know. It's sometimes you say, well, she's just digging this up because she has beef. But also, is the there? If there's a there, it doesn't matter if she has beef. I
Well,
mean,
also, is the beef based on something?
if you hurt me or my family and I go and rectify the situation, it doesn't change the fact that you hurt my family, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that I'm the one that did it. Oh, if the cops go and do it, okay, that's great and all, but it's actually cool if I do it too, right? So it's if she's got beef and there's a there, it doesn't matter she's got beef. If she got beef and she's just putting out some vague redacted stuff that you don't even know makes sense, but they're still going after people, that's different. If you're changing laws like they did in New York to prosecute Trump, there's no there. But this seems like there is. And frankly, I'm sorry. If anybody thinks the Clintons are not corrupt, we you have not lived through the 90s. You were a child at best in the 90s.
Um. Yeah, I keep forgetting to mention, for anyone who listens along regularly, a while back, I brought up Spain's green energy push in the late aughts through the 20 teens, and what it cost, how it cost more jobs than it created, and that once the subsidies ran out, the whole industry kind of collapsed. And one of the reasons I brought that up at the time, I don't even remember what we were talking about that brought it up, but one of the reasons I brought it up wasn't just to illustrate that particular point, but also, again, wearing the nerd shirt, have the glasses.
Is it nerdier than this? Come on.
Yeah, but I'm a nerd jock. Anyway, if I bring up something and I don't happen to have the source readily available, you can be fairly confident I know what the heck I'm talking about, because I'm a giant dork and I remember this stuff and I've been paying attention to it longer than is healthy. And I remember this Spanish green energy story from over a decade ago. And so if I bring up something like the Clinton Foundation has been a shady money laundering scheme since its inception, and there have been people reporting on it. People like uh, Peter Schweitzer, who's done a lot of bipartisan corruption reporting. He has been on the Clinton Foundation for a long time. I believe Charles Ortel is another name that pops into my head of someone who has a financial and journalistic background who has looked into this. This has been shady. They have been shady from the beginning. And it only got worse when she became Secretary of State, because that put what they were already doing with this so-called um, NGO nonprofit charity, and it pumped it full of steroids, because now she had all this access, and not just access but power, authority with regard to foreign interactions.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why these public servants are able to live the life of, mega millionaires through this influence peddling and
Hmm.
these backhand deals. There's no one in their right mind gives Bill Clinton, 10 years after his presidency, you don't give him a $500,000 speaking fee to come talk to your group unless you know you're getting something out of it.
Hmm.
And a lot of the again legal money laundering here is he's not paid $500,000. They donate to the Clinton Foundation
Hmm.
for their charitable work.
Yeah. And this is actually where I think we have talked about it on this channel, where I support, everybody's like, oh, well, Congress shouldn't get paid this much because they don't do any work or blah, blah, blah. No, I support they should get paid a lot, but they should not have any access to outside payments of any kind and full transparency. There is no speaking fees. There is no insider trading. There is no lobbies. There are no favors. There are you have to be 6 degrees removed from any NGO. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if your son wants to start one. He has to wait while you're in office. That's just the way it is. But they should be paid well because we need to attract good people. And the fact that we pay them minuscule, basically, compared to their profession. Like if you're a high-powered lawyer, why the hell are you going to go into Congress for the what, $100-ish thousand you're going to get paid? Why would you give up your $400,000 a year job
Mhm.
so you could go get paid $100,000 years for public service? No, pay them $500,000. I don't care, but you have no access to any other sources of income. You actually have to give up your job to do that. And so that's I we should pay them more, but at the same time, not have influence over how that payment comes in. The only payment they get is for that public service. Period. That would fix a lot, I personally think.
So back to the topic at hand. Do you think the Trump administration swung the pendulum too far and overcorrected on the Epstein files because of the Russia investigations? And do you think they can course correct?
I think that is highly probable because we also have to look at the individual in charge of it all, which is Trump. And he is desperate to cleanse the Russiagate scandal attached to his name because it is attached to his name and he's a raging narcissist. And you don't want those negative things attached to your name. Uh, I think that takes precedent over the right thing, which is to expose the freaking corrupt ring that is controlling our country at this point. And he is pathologically narcissistic to the point where he can't he will prioritize the thing that's attached to him over the thing that's attached to the nation, even no matter how much he says MAGA, right? When he says MAGA, he says, I'm going to make America great again.
Well, I am MAGA,
I
so
am MAGA. Yeah. So
I
make
can
America
rationalize
great
this.
again.
Yeah.
I'm just a patriot. I am, he is actually a lot of the assassination attempt and everything. Look how he's put himself out there. And he is so married to himself that he's okay dying that way too, because he will be talked about forever. And that's what I don't say that as a bad thing. That sounded bad, but because like I said before, the way to deal with a narcissist is align the good with what makes them look good, right? But he's okay. Bravery takes many forms, and we all have internal motivations, and his internal motivation is himself, his kids, and his legacy. And making America great again, quote unquote, is the legacy he wants to be attached to his name, not attached to JD Vance, not attached to Tulsi Gabbard, not attached to, the administration. He wants it attached to Donald Trump.
So if I had more than a couple dozen people listening to me, and I had the ear of someone uh who would matter. I think they can fix the Epstein mess they made for themselves and not detract from this, what is really a bombshell uh, release exposure by DNI Gabbard, because you can combine the two.
Well, that's why, yeah, that was going to be where I went next. Is they're not independent of each other,
Exactly.
realistically. Yeah.
So what I think they need to do is now Trump has a long history, and he's kind of the only person who can get away with this because of his personality and his following, his followers. As I haven't brought this up in a while, but Selena Zito is a great independent journalist, and you should follow her on X. Um, and she literally wrote the book on the 2016 election and saw it before others did, because her style is, um, she talks to everyday people. One of her quirks, and this is partly personal because I've heard her talk about it. She just likes it, but also she says it helps her professionally. Is she never takes an interstate. She never takes a major highway.
Mm.
Whenever she's going somewhere to cover a story, she always drives, and she always takes small roads, because she wants to see and stop and talk to people off the beaten path. She doesn't want the people that the corporate media is going to be talking to. She wants to hear what everyday normies are saying and thinking. And the way she put it after the 2016 election, that I thought was just brilliant and made a lot of the, what to me as a political nerd and an ideologue, a lot of things didn't make sense. And I went, okay, I don't necessarily agree, but I understand now, which is, she said, Trump's opponents took him literally, but not seriously. Trump's supporters took him seriously, but not literally. And that was in part to explain his seeming flip flops of, yeah, I can say Mexico is going to pay for the wall, but come on, you know, they're not literally going to pay for it. We're going to do, well, really kind of the kind of thing he's doing now is what he wanted to do then, but what we're talking about here, things were derailed literally before he was sworn in with this Russia nonsense. So Trump can turn on a dime and go 180 and not lose anything with his followers. People in the administration, don't try that. You're going to look like a moron. And that was shown in the 2015 Republican primary.
Mm-hmm.
Is that anyone who tried to emulate what Trump was doing just looked like a buffoon and ended up falling out of the race that much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Rubio. Rubio tried to out Trump, and he looked like a goober, and he lost a lot of the support he did have. So instead of just turning on a dime when it comes to Epstein, I think you need to rationalize what you said and why you said it. Because again, I think there is merit to, bad actors were trying to muddy the waters, and Trump himself and his administration overcorrected to say there's no there there. And I would say you need Bongino. He hasn't really spoken much publicly,
Mm-hmm.
but one, I think he has a trusted following. He has a lot of credibility because, to your point, of you don't leave your $400,000 lawyer job to go,
Yeah,
make
he left
150,000.
he left 10 plus million to go
Exactly.
to
He
a two
left
hundred thousand dollar a year job. Yeah.
a very lucrative podcasting empire that he had created, and to go be the assistant director of the FBI. Not only did you leave it, there's no guarantee that's there when you come back. When you
Mm-hmm.
decide to step away from this job and go back to talking. So there's credibility there. But also, because of what he left, he knows how to talk.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how to talk, he knows how to explain things. He knows how to lay out a case, not just technically because he's worked in law enforcement, but he knows how to lay out a case for an audience. But also, he knows how to do that while maneuvering around things he knows he can't say.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, when he talked about what happened at Butler in Butler, Pennsylvania with the meth club shooter, or later in Mar-a-Lago with the guy who tried to set up the ambush, he knew how to talk about that without exposing inside information, because you don't do that as a Secret Service agent or even a former agent. Because if you screw up and you let out information that you weren't supposed to let out, the president of the freaking United States' life is in danger.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows how to walk that tightrope of giving out as much information as you need to let the audience understand, but also protecting information. And what I think Bongino needs to say, the point he needs to make is, guys, supporters, whether dedicated supporters or, tangential fellow travelers, we can't do everything. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this is true. I think this is a lot of what is going on is there are only so many people we can trust in the law enforcement and intelligence community at the federal level.
Mm-hmm.
There are only
The
so
house
many of us
cleaning
we
is
can
very,
trust.
very, very, very
Yeah.
far from complete. Yeah.
We are trying to clean house while also still doing the job that we are supposed to do, which is protect the country.
They're trying to change the tire while the car is running.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're not going to let something like the Epstein case go if there is sufficient smoke there, but our primary focus needs to be the reason why I assume, and but I think they need to say, the reason to focus on, you laid out the case for why Trump is focused on the Russia collusion narrative hoax. But the reason the rest of us, that's important to the rest of us, is because the same thing we talked about with Epstein and who he was connected with and what was going on is that powerful people need to be held to account. Well, the people connected to Epstein, they're, I brought up Gates as I think that would be a good target of rich guy with a lot of influence.
Bill Gates.
Yep. Bill Gates. Sorry.
We've talked about Matt
Yep.
Gates on
Yep.
occasion. It's different
So
spelling, but
look into that and see if there's a there. And if there is, that's a good way to show no one is above the law. But at the end of the day, he's a private citizen.
mm-hmm.
The reason this Trump Russia collusion hoax matters is because people in very high positions of power, they went along with this.
Mm-hmm.
The people with the power to destroy your life, they went along with this.
Yeah. I would push back on that a little bit on I think you're underestimating the power of someone like Bill Gates,
Oh, no,
because
yeah.
look at what happened during COVID. Every bit of information we got that was what the authorities were going by was funded by Bill and Melinda Gates
Mm-hmm.
Foundation, UNICEF. So yeah, all of this fuckery that we had to go through with lockdowns and mandates and everything, that was under his control, or his group's control. So yeah, power takes many forms. You're talking political power. There's a person that had social cultural power through the avenue of science, which also is connected to Epstein. Because remember, the reason why Eric Weinstein had met him was because Epstein would recruit scientists to question or to fund their research, or all of these things that allowed him to get tendrils into, tentacles into these industries.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that, but I think you can make a good case and the kind of case where people like us would say, okay, I don't agree, but I understand.
Mm.
And we're going to put a pin in that and make sure to later, once we get past this issue, hold you accountable and make sure that you didn't forget this thing that we think is really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
But you need someone to come out and say, yes, we are focusing on this
Yeah,
because
I guess I have a little bit of a bias there because I saw the downfall of Nature magazine. I saw the downfall of Scientific America, Science Direct, Popular Mechanics. I saw these things being just torn apart, and I think it's
Mhm.
all in that same. I mean, I was reading the papers. I was reading the ridiculousness, and I was seeing basically shenanigans of how things are being written these days, and it's it's really tough to combat because of the idea laundering with the citations basically. I mean, the conceptual penis is still being cited. I'm sorry. It is. I mean, that's like the caricature of it, but it's still true.
Yeah.
You know, the ambivalent alliance, benevolent misogyny paper is being cited by somebody right now, as
Yeah.
we wrap this back up to toxic masculinity that we started with, right? So that paper exists and it is being cited by another paper, which is being cited by another paper. This was my argument with my social psych professor about the dumb conclusions in the discussion section of an otherwise good experiment, which was the pluralistic ignorance paper we had to read, where they made a conclusion in there. And in the statement, it said, this contradicts all other research, but we think. And then they make a statement. Well, someone who has an agenda will cite that statement they
Yep.
made, and that will continue the chain because it will be a legitimate paper that they cited. And that's how dangerous this is. I was like, this is dangerous. You can't make these statements even in your discussion section because that sentence will be cited and no one's going to read the whole paper it was cited
Mhm.
from. They're just going to make sure that paper existed.
Yep. Yep. Well, I'll be curious to see how this plays out. And again, I hope that it actually goes somewhere. And it looks like it is going somewhere because a few days after she released all this information, uh, the director of National Intelligence Office sent a criminal referral to the Department of Justice.
Hmm.
Now, I have not been able to find if that document is available for the public, so I don't know what the statutes they're citing are and what individuals they are specifically targeting. I've heard names thrown around, but I don't know if that's just speculation or if that's actually confirmed of these are the targets of the investigation. If that actually goes somewhere, that would be the time I think for my preference would be for Bongino to come out, have a press conference saying, these are the people we are investigating. This is why. This is why this matters. This is what I can say on the matter right now. But again, this is an ongoing investigation, so we can't divulge too much information. Blah, 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 blah. And then we will focus on other matters once we deal with this very serious, you know, criminality here.
Mm-hmm.
That I think would go a long way towards reassuring people that, all right, they may have stepped on a rake here with the Epstein files stuff, but they are holding people accountable and people need to be held to account. So maybe we'll come back around to this when we're done here.
Mm. It's just frustrating because I think as the person in the population that is a voting member, is someone who's been held accountable for everything I ever do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, it felt like it was the low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
We've got a conviction of Epstein. We have a conviction of Maxwell. We have a crime, but we don't have the buyers. We you convicted if there is no evidence of an Epstein conspiracy, then Maxwell should be free
Yeah.
because that was the evidence.
Yeah. I compared her to the Heidi Fleiss trial back in the 90s, the Hollywood Madam. There was a black book, names were named, and yet somehow in the Maxwell trial, she was convicted of sex trafficking. There were victims, and yet, to your point, there were no buyers. Curious.
Mm-hmm.
How does that happen? But it did. Yeah, it does feel like this was low hanging fruit. Um, it also makes me scratch my head and say, and I'm not the first one to say this, is wait a minute. They left this paper trail of the Russia collusion hoax, and there's no documentation for Epstein? Really?
Or did he? Did he might have been lower hanging fruit, right? He got some
Yeah.
convictions, but the big ones that would
Yeah.
incriminate anybody fell through. So, you know,
Well, the back to where I think you can, if I'm going to steel man, why you would focus on this issue above those what seemed like low hanging fruit is back to the point that I think needs to be made by someone like Bongino. He would be my choice. Is there are only so many people we can trust in this apparatus to do
mhm.
these kinds of investigations, but if you show that no, even these top people, even people at the director and assistant director level, they will be held to account. That pushes down the chain to
Mhm.
say, you'd better do your effing job.
Well, I think I brought this up probably it was shortly after the election, uh, when we were talking about pardons versus amnesties and stuff. And I said one of the
Mhm.
best things that the administration could do is go ahead and uh, extend the Golden Bridge by providing amnesty for everybody at this level or lower.
And there's historical precedence for that because that's
Yeah.
essentially what we did in Germany, in
Mhm.
occupied Germany.
Yeah. Yeah. This level or lower, you have amnesty. I don't care what you did. But with that comes responsibility of we're going to take on these people and you can't be afraid.
Yeah.
And yeah, that seems to me like the best strategy. Yes, some guilty people will get away with something, but the guilty people,
Yeah.
the ones with actual power to do it again, will be dealt with. And I would be perfectly happy with that as a citizen. And realistically, we talked about power dynamics. You're the young intern, and you come in, and they're like, shred these documents. Are you going to question what those documents are?
Yeah.
No, you're going to grab a stack of it and you're going to start shredding, right? That's just the way it is. Or do this task. Okay, this task doesn't make sense to me, but I'm going to go do it because I'm a freaking low man on the totem pole trying to make my way up in Washington, D.C., which is expensive to live. And
Yep. Yep. We'll see what actually plays out. I've been looking the last couple of days. I haven't seen any news stories that anything's going anywhere yet other than the criminal referral.
mhm.
So we'll see what comes of it. Hopefully, again,
Yeah,
the people
the
who need to
most of
be
the
held
news in the
accountable are held
last couple of
accountable.
days has been about the news. It
Yeah.
was here's how New York Times is reporting on this. Here's how WAPO is reporting on this. Here's this, and here's the actual truth. So yeah.
Yeah. The stories about this stories are exhausting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see y'all next time for we don't know what. Probably still overthinking Wheel of Time because we meant to go away from that, and yet we keep coming back because we're dorks.
Yeah, and I don't know what the topic's going to be this time. So
We might actually move on to something else finally, unless we have some comments that send us down some rabbit holes. So we'll look at those. Um, and then next week, sorry, we'll see what the heck is happening. Who knows?
shoot, what do we got? We got 6 notifications. What the hell?
Oh, well, maybe we will have some things to talk about then. All right. Well, you got anything else? Because I am done.
Oh, yeah, we got a new commenter, TY the screenwriter. Okay. So we'll go through that. We got a lot of comments. Okay, so we'll just start with comments next time and see where it goes with the Wheel of Time stuff.
All right. We'll see y'all then.
All right, later.